You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's going on in these wild and crazy markets? Well, let's find out together, shall we? It is time once again for the Option Block. My name, of course, is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are binging these days. Let me just say thank you to all of you out there who are making this the newest addition to the network, the Futures Rundown. Such a hit. You folks are devouring it. So thank you to all of you who have been clearly enjoying. I guess that's on me. I should have launched a Futures show a lot earlier. I held off for a long time. And so finally they held my nose to the grindstone. And you folks are clearly enjoying it. So glad you're checking it out. If you're not subscribed to the full network, first off, what are you doing? Wherever you're getting this, get the full network. Then, of course, so you can get Futures Rundown. You get the This Week in Futures options after this show, Crypto Rundown, Vol Views, Advisors Option, all the fun stuff that we do here on the network. And, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, then by all means, head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That'll get you options oddities. Maybe coming at you earlier, maybe coming at you today as opposed to tomorrow. We'll see, as well as, of course, awesome pro Q&As like we had earlier this week with our friends over there at IB and a whole bunch more. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Let me just say our thoughts to everyone out there in the Southeast and Florida who are dealing with yet another crazy storm. I know what you're going through. This thing literally landed on top of my parents' house about 20 miles away from where they live is where the eye wall came ashore. Don't be like them. Don't ride these things out, listeners. Get the heck out of Dodge. So hopefully you're doing well. I'm assuming they're doing well. I haven't heard from them in about 12 hours. And last time I heard from them, they had lost power. But I'm assuming they're doing well. Hopefully you're staying safe over there in that neck of the woods as well. As we go around the horn, see who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the land where never a hurricane has touched down. Yes, I'm talking about St. Charles, because of course they have that weather shield. Keeps them nice, sunny, and 75 degrees all year long. Where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. How go things in the hurricane-free St. Charles?
Hey, no hurricanes today, so consider myself blessed, and definitely thoughts and prayers go out to all of our listeners in the Southeast.
Yeah, the last thing they needed was another storm rolling up on them just a week or two after the other one. So just a 1-2 punch down there in the Southeast. And then joining us from Cboe East, once again, our old pal, the Flow Master, Mr. Henry Schwartz. Mr. Flow Master, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Always good to join you and talk options. And it's a beautiful day in New York. It's been a really nice couple of weeks. I also feel bad for the people in Florida. It's been kind of terrible so far. But New York is New York, and everything's good here, and the market's moving. So I'm excited to get into it.
Because we got some stuff to discuss. The Pit Boys on assignment today, but we're going to keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there. And it's been another one of those days, listeners, where if you don't like what you're seeing on the screen, just wait 5 minutes. Chances are you'll get something else. And we have been kind of doing that little bit of whipsaw-y, vacillating dance out there. We're rallying. We're threatening 5,800. We're coming back down. We're threatening 57.5, 57.60 or so out there. So we're kind of all over the place out there today. Looks like as we're kicking off the show, we're taking a tick back to the red. S&P off about 1/3%. NASDAQ off about 0.15%. And the Dow off about 0.4%. That's after the NASDAQ was up, almost about 1% there at one point today. So, it's been one of those days, listeners. The small caps off exactly 1% as we're kicking off the show. So, you don't like what we're seeing out there? Just wait 5 minutes. That's the case in VIX land as well, hanging out at a 21 as we kicked off the show. Puts it down about 1/4 point from Monday, so mostly unched. In fact, as we're ticking off a little bit and vol's firming up, we're getting close to that 21/4 level right now, so wait a few minutes, it'll probably be unched. So a lot to unpack there. VIX also looking a little bit firmer, a little bit frothier out there at about a 118, up about 5 points from where we were this time last week. So starting to get into that area. I've said this before, in the before times, in the pre-pandemic times, when VIX would start drifting up to about 125, that was usually where we would see it top out. And then it might hang out there for a little bit, then usually it would start drifting back down the other way. Sometimes if things were aberrant, it could blow through it, obviously get to 135, maybe 150. But those were rare scenarios. These days, all bets are off. We spent several years north of triple digits in VIX, so it's a very different game now, post-pandemic, but still something to watch as we're threatening the 120 level out there in VIX. All right, a lot to unpack. Let's go out to the shores of St. Charles first, the way we started. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, it was an Uncle Mike type of day. Now it's not. Maybe it will be again in 5 minutes. We'll see. What's catching your eye, I should say, out there today?
Well, I mean, just the whipsaw movement of where we've gone today in terms of we're starting out. I remember just looking at the futures before the market was open. I think we were down like 20 points, something along those lines. And then we continue to drop in the open. We then rally right around a little after 9 o'clock Chicago time. We drop a little bit. And then up till probably like 45 minutes ago, we were knocking on the door of 5,800. And then now we're down to 57.75. So we're 25 points away when I believe we were roughly 6 points away about 45 minutes ago. So it's definitely been all over the place today, but not too all over the place. So in other words, we are channeling, but it's not really, the range is not unbearable by any means, or I don't feel it is anyway. The thing that I'm seeing today that's really lighting up my tape is the continued sell-off in bonds. They've also been rather a little bit of a roller coaster today to some extent, in that they've kind of been following the market or the stock market. And so I want to continue to see, will this bond sell-off continue? Because when we have the rally with which we have, typically rallies can give you pretty decent sized pullbacks, or big rallies can give you some pretty decent sized pullbacks. And so we're kind of right in the middle. And one of my trademark slogans I say on the show, not for the all-time high days, but in general with trading, buy the dump, sell the hump, don't diddle in the middle. And right now, I would say that bonds are kind of diddling in the middle based upon where they have been. So it's really something to where I want to continue to monitor this and see how things go in not only the stock market, but in the bond world throughout the earnings season. I don't think the earnings are going to have too much of an effect on bonds, although you never know, but want to see where they go, because rates are a big deal. And everyone, myself included, thinks that they won't be a big deal going into an election that's in a few weeks. But with bonds selling off like they are, it's something to where I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on. Just a couple other points of note. We do have a little bit of a rally going in the precious metals in both silver and gold. And then in terms of some of the individual names with which we're watching, not a lot of movement in things that typically have a lot of movement. And sometimes you could say it's a slow day. You know it's a slow day when NVIDIA is only up 1.29%. So if NVIDIA is only up a little over 1%, I mean, what's the point of even getting out of bed, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing today.
You all should just go back to bed, because NVIDIA is not delivering out there. Let's see what the Flowmaster is delivering. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what's lighting up your tape on yet another whipsaw-y Thursday, sir?
Yeah, it's a little bit whipsaw-y. I mean, we saw a pretty strong rally yesterday, and then this morning there were some numbers came out, and we did sell off what felt like a decent amount, but again, 27.30 handles is really not too much with the market up here. A couple things I think are interesting. I mean, the market has kind of been in a range for a few weeks, so there's actually not that much happening, and we are holding near the all-time highs, and market's up 20% year to date for the S&P, and so. What a couple things are interesting. VIX is, I was actually looking at, we sell on the Cboe data shop VIX inputs, which is really all of the SPX option prices that go into the VIX calc on a daily basis. And I pulled that into a spreadsheet that I was playing around with, and it reminded me of a few things. One of them was that we 2 days ago, I think we were exactly a month away from the election, right? So meaning that the VIX options, the VIX index itself is calculated from SPX options, one further than 30 days out, one term, and one shorter than that. But we only use Fridays. So even though there are SPX dailies out more than 30 days, you still are interpolating a whole week. And so there's a weighting. And so as of a couple days ago, VIX was entirely based on the options that expire, the options that will be open when the election takes place. And that's where everybody's kind of expecting there to be a high level of vol. And this whole explanation is just to say that what we've seen is, even though the market has held steady and even was up yesterday and is up, or it was about flat now, VIX has actually been ticking up, and that's because basically the shorter dated SPX that didn't include the election rolled off of the VIX calculation, at least. And so it's the VIX is very heavily election focused at this moment. So it's not actually so much that volatility was increasing, it's that the weighting was changing and you had a higher vol for the election. So that I think has been really interesting. I actually asked one of our quants, I'm like, why don't we use the daily options now that we do have, there basically is a 30-day term every single day now, or something very close to it. We don't have to interpolate between 2 Fridays. And he said that we were actually evaluating the data to figure out if the quote quality was good enough to make that change. So, but I mean, markets, I don't know, markets actually seems, kind of boring for the last couple days. A lot of stocks moving around. I listened to a great podcast on the China activity as well, which is really kind of a pretty fun pocket of action over the last couple weeks.
Speaking of fun pockets of action, you were just talking about all things VIX. We might as well hit on it now because you're not going to be here, obviously, on the Monday episode, Mr. Flowmaster. But you guys got some big news coming out in the VIX complex, kicking off on Monday. Options on the VIX futures. Now, people might be saying, a lot of our listeners get it already. They understand what VIX options are right now and the difference. But we clearly have a lot of new listeners. I'm looking at a lot of the feedback from our new futures show. There's clearly a lot of new listeners joining the network all the time. So some people might be confused by that. They might be saying, what do you mean? There's already options on VIX. So Mr. Flowmaster, what the heck are you guys launching on Monday, sir?
So yeah, the VIX, the options on VIX futures start next week, and they basically have been created for 2 reasons. One is that there's actually a lot of accounts there that are futures accounts that can't trade index options, but they can trade futures options. So this will actually open up that product to that community. The other piece that goes along with this is eventually we can list short-dated, even daily VIX options if they expire into futures. That's a lot harder to do with the VIX. The way that the cash settlement works for VIX, the actual Wednesday morning settlement, we don't really want to try to do that on a daily basis because it basically requires people to kind of come together and net off. So it's going to serve 2 purposes, and for people that trade, and to understand if how much attention you need to pay to this product, it is another product. It has a lot of similarities to VIX options. In fact, if anybody that traded index options, SPX options in the olden days, even to today, knows that there are certain expiry cycles where the futures options and the index options price exactly the same, and then there are also very important differences for other expirations. So there is some kind of nitty gritty to the way that you price these things, but in the end, they are effectively options on the same kind of underlying. Therefore, they're going to behave very, very similar. I'm excited to kind of see what differences we get in the kind of order flow, right? Like, we know that, you dive into this on a regular basis. We know, how much more the call volume is than puts and VIX, and the kinds of trades we've seen in there, right? Like the big upside call spreads and the ratio spreads. I'm really curious to see what we're going to start seeing in the futures options, and if maybe the flow is a little bit different. If maybe there's, it is a different trading community. Futures traders are a little different than options traders and stock traders. So I think it'll be really interesting to dig it apart and try to figure out what differences we see and why that might be happening. But I'm excited to see them get off the ground.
Should be interesting stuff. So if you've been waiting for that addition to the VIX complex coming on Monday, listeners, you don't have to wait too much longer. In fact, you don't have to wait at all if you want to see what's trading out there in the markets. Let's get into it, shall we, listeners? These whipsaw type of days, listeners, they usually tend to generate a little bit of action, a little bit of volume out there. And that's pretty much what we're seeing out there right now. VIX looking pretty firm, pretty robust out there right now at 654,000 contracts. That's nothing to sneeze at, especially when the ADV has continued to erode. It was threatening 1 million contracts a day not too long ago, down to 810 a day. Now, still obviously pretty active, but coming in a couple 100,000 contracts from its peak not too long ago. What's lighting it up out there today? It's 45,000 of the DEES 16 puts, listeners, followed by number 2, 39,000 of the OC doubles. Those went up for 4 cents this morning. Before you get all excited, there's a lot of OI on that strike, so they could be unwinding some of those bad boys, getting their 4 cents while the getting is good. 35,000 for number 3 of the OC 29s. Number 4, 35,000 of the OC 19 puts. There is that little synthetic fund going up there today as well. And then 33,000 of the Nove 17 puts. So we're kind of all over the place in VIX today, but pretty heavy, which is the name of the game. SPY looking decently active, pretty much about where we expect it to be. We usually expect it right around 4.5 million. The ADV 4.4 million right now. The ADV 7.9 million. So pretty much right about in line where we expect. If we wait a couple of minutes, it'd be right at that level. The S pretty much exactly where we expect it to be. Right around 1.75 million contracts right now. The ADV just a tick below 3 million, 2.98 million to be precise. If you're wondering, I know I was, so I ran the numbers while the Flow Master was talking. Is it another day where we are 20 for 20 in the most active in SPX, all going off the board today? The answer is a resounding yes. SPX, why would you trade anywhere else than today? That should be the new marketing slogan for that product, because once again, everyone and their mother is slinging a whole bunch of one-day options, including the big dog today, 57,000 of the 5,800s. That one doesn't surprise me. We were kissing that earlier this morning. And for all we know, could be kissing it again in a couple of minutes, listeners, followed by number 2, 39,000 of the 57 half puts out there. So a lot of action out there in the SPX as we keep on rolling. Is there some action in small caps? The answer is a resounding yes. 1.1 million contracts on the tape right now in IWM. So they're loving themselves some IWM. The ADV is 1.3 million, so we're pretty much already there. It might be there by the end of the show. The big dog out there in small caps today, 60,000 of the Nove 204 puts, followed by 50,000 of the Nove 206 puts. Looks like we got opening on the 204s. Looks like we got a bit of a put roll down, maybe. Either way, you might be saying, wow, that's surprising that the big dog is not a 0-day option. In fact, I'm looking right now, most of the top 20 are not expiring today. So small caps, very much a different beast than what we see in the S. I mean, you probably heard this if you listen to our TWIFO show. We break down, E-mini options versus RUT options. You see that difference pretty starkly contrasted there. It's usually something going up in November or 30 days out in small caps versus something expiring today, inevitably, in the E-mini. That's just the way these products trade. So today looks like it's a size put spread / roll doing 110,000 contracts by itself out there in a good old IWM. And not to be forgotten, we got our old pal, the Qs, pretty much exactly where we expect it to be right now as well. 2.35 million, the ADV 3.86 million. And you know what? Just to be fair, just to be even, Steven, we will run the same analysis. Let's look at the top 20 most active in the Qs right now, listeners. And it looks like 18 of the top 20 today are expiring today. The other 2 are expiring tomorrow. So you're not talking a lot of long-term paper in the Qs either. Always fascinating to me the way these products trade. Just very different rules of engagement across the board. Either way, a pretty heavy day in small caps and a decently active day in the Qs. Is it a decently active day in single name equities? The answer is yeah, kind of. It's respectable. Once again, right around 250,000 contracts, 244 to be precise. Of course, I'm sure if we re-racked it right now, we might be pretty close to that level, 249. So we're almost at our barometer of right around 250,000 contracts, which is how I would term a respectable day, listeners. That gets us to our old pal Micron. Old because this is something we were talking about a long time ago on the floor of the Cboe. Still hot again, 105.97, so pretty much 106 right now, up 4.25 or 4.2%. So they are loving themselves some Micron. I'm looking at the headlines here. All I keep seeing is headlines saying it's not a bargain. It's not a bargain. The stock is expensive. And yet it is screaming to the north yet again, up 4.15%. So apparently The market doesn't think so today. More buyers than sellers. Good for about 250,000 contracts out there in good old Micron. Number 9, a name we might be coming back to in a little bit. This is Celsius Holdings. This is a beverage company. They have energy drinks with a whole bunch of caffeine, hence the name. Ticker symbol CELH. Don't believe we've ever had them in our top 10 before, listeners. Trading $34, about $34.10 right now, up 360 or nearly 12%, about 11.7%. So they are loving themselves some Celsius Holdings today. On the year, not so much. A year ago, the stock was about $56, so they're off almost $22 on the year, or about 39%. In the interim, they did a lot of living. They rallied it up to almost 100. 93.5 in March, and then 99.62 in May. So they kissed the 100 level twice, and then since May, it's been just an apocalypse out here. Since May, it's off over 60%. In fact, if you go from the end of the peak, it's off even more than that. So good day for Celsius Holdings, but just a rough year out there. They're lighting it up. I do think maybe we'll be coming back to them in a little bit, so we'll pause on them for now. Number 8, going out to Super Micro Computer Inc., ticker symbol SMC. Another thing, everything old is new again. 46 3/4, off about $0.50 today, or a little over 1%. Good for number 8, 314,000 contracts on the tape. Number 7, yes, I said all the way down to number 7. It's the fruit company. So not doing much volume today. Only 366,000 contracts on the tape for the fruit company. 228.5, off about $1, so about 0.5%. So not a wild day. They've had a little bit more range. 229.25 to the upside, 227.17 to the downside. So a little over $2 range on the day, hanging out pretty much exactly in the middle of it right now. And again, good for number 7, all the way down to number 7 today for the fruit company. What's kicking it to the curb this week? Well, a newcomer to the top 10. I haven't seen this one. I'm trying to think if we've ever seen this one in the top 10. Maybe once or twice right back when it was first listed. This is obviously a contentious one. This is DJT, trading $23.95, up about 340 or over 16%. You know it. Maybe you love it. Maybe you hate it out there. Of course, Trump Media and Technology Group Corp. Say all that 5 times fast. Good for 369,000 contracts today. Trump popping hard, up 3.25 and nearly 16%. This name has been just a crazy one to watch. It's very much seen as a bellwether for his political fortunes, obviously. And as a result, the stock kind of moves to the beat of its own drum. Spent the first good chunk of this last year into the beginning of this year hanging out right around the mid-teens. And then it shot up. It looks like its high for the year is 79.38. Hanging out right now at 23.76. That said, over the last month, it's done all right. It's rebounded from its low of about 12.15 all the way up to $23 right now. So it's pretty much doubled. That was on September 23rd. So just in the last few weeks, it's pretty much doubled out here. So maybe folks think the worm is turning for the Trump campaign. Again, the things that drive this stock are completely divorced from economic reality. So just another weird one out here, but good for number 6. 3.6. Let's look really quickly because we haven't really dug into this name. Let's just look. I'm curious. What are folks slinging out here in DJT? Man, it's opening across the board for size. The big dog, 52,000 of the Nove 35s, followed by 52,000 as well of the Nove 25s. Looks like we might have some vertical action. Is that the case? I don't see it going up as a spread, but they went up at the same time, so it probably was a spread. 648 for the Nove 25s, 14,612 times against 410 for the 35. So they did the whole spread for 238. Again, 14,612 times. So the stock's 23.76. You like that spread, listeners? 238 for the old DJT. That might be a fun little flash poll. Certain to get people hot and bothered on that one. Either way, number 6, DJT. 369,000 contracts. Number 5, it's the Amazonians today, listeners. 187.10, up nearly $2 or about 1%. So again, we're kind of all over the map today. Good for 371,000. Also, we're all the way up at number 5, and we're still looking pretty light from a volume perspective, so not a banger day out there. But again, like I said earlier, given what it costs to break into the top 10 today, it's still overall respectable. Number 4, this name, talk about it's been on a rocket ship to the moon of late. This is Palantir, 43 and a quarter. My goodness. It was just threatening the 20 handle not that long ago. The last 5 days, it's up 365 or about almost 10%. So getting a nice lift out there. My goodness. Like, getting added to the S&P doesn't hurt. But my goodness, just on the rampage. I remember not that long ago getting run over, selling, I think it was 8 puts to the downside. And now here we are, $43. So what a difference about a year and change makes out here in Palantir. 474,000 contracts. And the number 4 spot. Number 3, it's AMD, 165.10 off about $6, about 3.5%. Good for 624,000 contracts. And the number 3 spot. Number 2, it's good old Tesla, looking back to its normal self, 1.06 million. It was looking kind of light when we talked about it on the Monday show. 241 and 3/4, just ticking half a buck. 242 and a quarter now, up about $1.25. So a kind of quiet day net right now. Let's on the day though, it's had a net range of a decent range, about a little over $10. It's like about 10.45. It was 242.79 to the upside and 232.34 to the downside. So obviously pretty much near its highs for the day right now. Good for 1.06 million. And the big dog that Uncle Mike said was kind of underwhelming him today. It's NVIDIA, 3.07 million, 134.5, up $1.84, about 1.4%. They've had exactly $4 range today, listeners. Low is 131 even, the high 135 even. So one of those kind of days out here, listeners. Is it a hot day on the earnings front? Well, you know what? Not yet, but it's about to be. We had PepsiCo on Tuesday, but today it's starting to pop off a little bit. We have Delta. We have, before the bell, we had Tilray before the bell, Domino's, a pizza. And then after the bell, we have some names. But it looks like tomorrow, obviously, is really when kind of the unofficial kickoff to earnings season begins. So if you've been waiting to sink your teeth into some hot earnings action, you got you covered on Friday, listeners. JP Morgan Chase, BlackRock, Wells Fargo, BNY, all the hot financials you know and love and indeed love to trade. And once we kick those off, we're really back in it again. So we'll have some hot updated. In fact, they just landed. They just landed in my hot little hands as we are talking, listeners. Look at that. Look at that. How's that for timing, listeners? Fresh, hot off the presses from our friends over there at Orats. We've got updated earnings move results, earnings season, all the good stuff. Let's start with Domino's, a pizza, popping off before the bell today. They were at $413.20 going into their announcement. They were pricing in, my goodness, they were pricing in 7.2%. They were expecting a banger. And right now, listeners, looks like there is no pizza vol. Pizza vol has gone to die. The actual move, less than 1%, 0.7%. Wow. Premium sellers unite and rejoice in Domino's Pizza. Wow. Who knew? Selling pizza vol, the road to fame and fortune. Is it the same in Delta Airlines? They're before the bell today as well. They were at $51 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 5.2%, and they had delivered, as of right now, 1.2%. There's another one. My goodness. Premium annihilation. Is this going to be the theme? Is this going to be the theme? After so many cycles of just blowing the doors off, outperforming long vol, clearly the way to go, have we finally reached critical mass? Are we coming back the other way? Man, these first two names, or are these the tail end of last season? That's a good way to view it as well. Either way, these first two names, not exactly lighting the world on fire here, listeners. My goodness. Let's look here really quickly. Citi, tomorrow before the bell, 64.12. That's where they were trading. They're pricing in 260. In the past, they've moved 173, so they're pricing in a banger. Let's go to Wells Fargo. I'm sorry, Citi's coming up next week. Wells Fargo's tomorrow. 57.5 is where they were trading in Wells Fargo. They're pricing in 250. In the past, they moved 175, so a little bit of extra juice out there as well. JP Morgan, 213.42. They're pricing in 670. In the past, they've moved 668, so they're pricing in absolutely nothing. My goodness. Our pals, Interactive Brokers, they were just on the show on Tuesday. 15th after the bell, 149.5. They're pricing in 570. In the past, they've moved about 370. So, wow, they're pricing in a banger. Maybe these new election contracts really lighting the world on fire out there. United Airlines, 15th after the bell. 59.5 is where they were trading. They're pricing in 373. In the past, they've moved 383. So actually taking a bit of a haircut out there. And if you're wondering right now, our long-term average, it did tick up after last season. So it continues to tick up. Right now, hanging out at a whopping 114%. Can we possibly beat it again this cycle? I guess we're about to find out tomorrow when it all kicks off. Meanwhile, it is time to kick off the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's unleash the Flow Master, see what he has fixed his steely gaze upon this week. And you know what? I told you we'd be coming back to this one, listeners. It's our old pal in the caffeinated beverage market. Yes, it is Celsius Holdings, Inc., ticker symbol CELH. You know the deal. I just went through it. It's a good day, but a pretty rough year for Celsius Holdings. But Mr. Flow Master, that's not stopping you from spotting some flow out there today. What's catching your eye in your new favorite caffeinated beverage maker, sir?
So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I think there's kind of a story where Celsius was kind of having a big battle with Monster energy drinks, and Monster kind of won the battle. I believe that was why the stock had such a rough time. But with the stock down here, I did see an interesting trade really early. So at 9:35 in the morning, New York time, just 5 minutes after we opened up, somebody paid 97 cents for almost 3,000, the October 25th. So that's 2 weeks from tomorrow. 37 strike calls. Stock was at 33 and a quarter. They paid 97 cents 3,000 times, almost $300,000. It is an opening trade, and it kind of seemed to kick off what turned out to be a pretty solid barrage of volume. So what we're seeing right now, the call volume is 12 times normal. The put volume is 3 times more normal. Stock's right now, stock's at 34.11, so it is a little higher, not a ton higher, but almost a buck. What's kind of interesting is the vol's up by about 8 points. The skew has tilted to the upside. It's so that basically, we talk about inverted skew a lot, and when you get into these kind of speculative or meme stock style dynamics, people care a lot more about the calls, and basically the perceived risk of an up crash is greater than a down crash, and therefore calls are actually more valuable if that's the case. As of right now, you have 220,000 calls that have traded, 50,000 puts. Total volume is 8 times normal. Stock volume is 22 million shares, which is also 4 times normal. So this thing has gotten hot, and with the stock up almost 12 points, I don't know what people are looking for, but it's certainly a hot name. And then the person who dove in early with those 3,000 calls seems to be doing the best, because there have been a few other big trades and a couple of big spreads, but those 37s are actually looking the best.
A hot name, Celsius. I see what you did there. I'll start calling you the pun master, sir, if you keep this up. Keep up these witticisms. Mr. Uncle Mike, I know you like yourself a good caffeinated beverage or two out here. What do you think about, I know in the past you had a dim view of our Tiger calls on the show last week. Maybe you could redeem yourself. Maybe you are head over heels in love with these OC 37s for about $1 in Celsius, sir.
I don't know if I would say that I'm head over heels in love with the calls by any means, but I suppose if you want to do some speculation, if you're going to buy them, if you're going to speculate, you might as well speculate.
Is that like your 48% guarantee? If you're going to do it, you might as well do it kind of thing?
I give a 49% guarantee. Thank you very much.
Okay. You stand by your guarantees. That is true. All right, let's keep going. Let's go out to everyone's favorite WW International. You might be saying, what the hell is WW International? This is the rebranded Weight Watchers. I guess it's not cool to say Weight Watchers anymore. I don't know. Is that an archaic name? Either way, trading $2.07 today. Man, what happened? Did Oprah buy more or something? They're up 44 cents today, or 27, almost 28%. Oh, they did something with looks like the Ozempic stuff, the GLP-1 type things. Okay, that'll do it, I guess. Those are pretty hot right now. So having a good day today, up nearly 29%. On the year, no bueno, off over $11 or 84%. So they have pretty much annihilated. In fact, this thing was trading 76 cents just about a week ago. So actually got as low as 67 cents. So if you wanted a little WW, listen, you could have bought all you wanted for 67 cents a week ago. Now, a whopping $2. Mr. Flowmaster. I hate to even ask you. I'm looking at your flow right now. Is this true? Is this what you spotted out here today, sir? Did somebody buy the 15s?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I had a little position in HIMS, which is also got a bounce. Got a bounce when they started selling these weight loss drugs, this new generation of drugs, and then it got kind of smoked because I believe the FDA came down on them for the way they were selling them or something. So it's kind of interesting to see Weight Watchers, which I thought kind of went bankrupt, but maybe not, kind of back from the brink, and it seems to be all powered by the weight loss drugs. So yeah, the trade that stood out to me was a buyer of 2,000, almost 2,000 of the January 15 strike calls. They paid a nickel. So those are about 600% out of the money. I actually did kind of back up. I actually think this might be a closing buyer because there is open interest there from March that was actually opened up around the same price. So maybe they basically said, you know what, I don't know if anything's really going to happen here. And it looks like in March, the stock was still over $2.50, and I think about 1,000 traded for 20 cents. So I think this is probably a closer. We'll know for sure tomorrow if the open interest shrinks or doesn't move. But, kind of interesting. The funny thing to me also is the second biggest trade in there is a little bit more kind of normal. It's 1,000 lot of the October 1 strike calls trading for $1. So also probably a closer by somebody who's gotten hurt. So it's a weird one. You don't usually see a lot of 600% out of the money calls trading. I think it's worth understanding, and it's not an odd block in the kind of the sense where like, okay, somebody here might be onto something. I want to put on a position. This is more like a interesting story.
You put them on for 14, 15 cents. They erode down to, a nickel. I guess you want to take what's left of it. I could see that. You're like, I want to salvage my 4 cents 2,000 times, live to scrape by perhaps another day. I could certainly see some logic to that. Or you could just say, hey, at that point, it's gone. Let the dice fly. You're right. When they put them on, the stock was 231. So it wasn't like, and it could have been actually, looks like they might have been overwriting them for 15 cents. So maybe they caught a decent bid, in which case they're happy. They're sitting on 11 cents 2,000 times, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. Now, let's see here. Let's do one more here. Let's go out to the Hog. I haven't talked about the Hog in a while, listeners. AKA our old pal Harley Davidson, 33.83, off about 13 cents. So kind of an unched day for them. On the year, been a decent year, all things considered, up about exactly $3, or almost exactly 10%. They were a little over $30. It's actually 30.82, and now they're 33.83, so up 301. Their low came in October, right on Halloween of last year, like a lot of names, 25.43, and their high was 44.16 back in March. So they had quite a lot of living between Halloween and March. And they've kind of settled down to this mid to high 30s range pretty much ever since, even though they did come off of it recently. They were trading $39 just a couple of weeks ago. Now they're down to 33. So they're off about almost 10% just in the last 5 days, and the last month they're off 3%. So it's been a rough month. Decent year net overall, though, even though they have given some of that back. This recent sell-off might explain what we're seeing out here today. Looks like somebody, listeners, may be feeling a little bit of that old spookage. They said, Nove 32s, how are they? They got $1.15 at $1.25. That's not a bad market when Hog, not exactly the most active name on the planet. They said, done, I'll pay $1.25, 4,379 times. The stock was pretty close to here, $33.95 when this trade went up. Now, obviously, they're getting earnings. It's going to be actually pretty soon. The earnings are on October 24th, so they will get them in their Nove cycle options. So maybe that makes these a little bit more exciting to you. They paid $1.25, so they're not super cheap, but they're also buying decently tight protection. I mean, a lot of times we see people paying more than this for options that are, 10 handles plus out of the money. So they're stopping themselves out at the 32 strike, obviously minus $1.25, so 30.75 at the end of the day. I don't know. If you like these listeners, are they attractive to you? Mr. Flowmaster, what do you think about somebody maybe not liking the near-term prospects for the Hog, sir?
Yeah, this definitely looks like a it traded on Cboe. I can tell you for sure, just because it does show up as a cross, just to be we can be 100% sure that it was an opening. That it was a customer buyer. It's definitely opening. It's customer buyer. Firm sold about 2/3 of it, and the market maker sold about 1/3 of it. It looks like somebody's kind of not a big fan of the stock. I've been in and out of Hog over the years. Like it kind of always has a struggle. They're very expensive. The demographics are not really working in their favor. They try to come out with an electric motorcycle, and then I don't think that quite works out. So I think they just kind of trade a little bit range bound. Somebody seems to be wanting to cover the downside for a while.
All right, and listeners, it is time for us to cover some of your mail with the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block. Let's do a quick check-in on our flash poll that we put up a few minutes ago, inspired by that DJT paper we were just talking about earlier. We said, hey, Nove 25.35 vertical for 238. Somebody liked it to the tune of 50,000 contracts today. Are you a fan? Are you a buyer or a seller at that level? Right now, 100% of our audience saying sold to you, sir. So that's a flash poll. If you're listening after the fact on the podcast, probably won't have time. But if you're hanging out, checking out our socials, following us at Options, you should see it. Make your voice heard out there. And no shortage of opinions on DJT, that is for sure. But our actual question of the week this week, listeners, is going back to what we were talking about earlier, the mechanics, the nuances of VIX around the election. We said, hey, we're a month out from the election. A lot still has to unfold between now and November 5th. However, when the dust settles, where will VIX open? Where will VIX open on Wednesday, November 6th? We gave you 4 pretty wide ranges, give you a little chance to swing for the fences. We said around here, 18 to 22. Or higher, 22 to 26, or still higher, north of 26, or back down below 18. Mr. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you, sir. Where do you feel VIX Cash will open the day after the election? Where do you think our audience is going?
I mean, I'm hoping that we know who the winner of the presidential election is on the Tuesday night. And I'm going to go with below 18, because if we know who it is, we'll be below 18 either way.
We can all dream, sir. Mr. Flowmaster, same question for you, sir. Where do you think we're hanging out the day after the election, and where do you think our audience is going?
I kind of think we're going to be higher. I would be 20. I'm going to go with the 22 to 26. I think it's going to be a little bit choppy for a month or so. We actually had a professional analyst speak today within Cboe, just internally, about kind of his view. And, it does come down to the Electoral College, and, but there's, I don't know, it's a toss up. And I think I'm not predicting any disasters, but I do think there's going to be a lot of kerfuffle that might stretch out for a few weeks or a few months. So I'm going to go with the 22 to 26.
So not buying 18 puts for the day after the election is the flow master. You know what our audience is, though? 44.4% right now saying back below 18. Maybe there's some optimism, some hopium in that result. Higher, the flow master number, 25.9%, 22 to 26. Even higher, north of 26, 18.5%. And around here, 18 to 22, 11.1%. Speaking of all things political, looks like some Trump fans have made their way into our poll, because now we are at 33% buyers and 2/3 for sellers on that Trump vertical. So that's going to go away in an hour. Make your voice heard as we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, Uncle Mike, we will start with you. By the way, a little catch up here at the end of the show. We're hanging out pretty much close to where we were at the start of the show again. VIX right around 21. The NASDAQ off 0.15%. S&P off about 1/3%. Dow off about 1/3% as well. So pretty close to where we were to start the show. So after I said we're in whipsaw mode, we kind of just settled out here for the show. But Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what's catching your eye, or what are you keeping an eye on, I should say, in a still not Uncle Mike type of day?
No, we actually looked like we were going to rally a little bit. We even made a run at going positive on the day for a little bit. We didn't quite get there, I don't believe. But you never know. There's still a lot of trading to be done in the next couple hours. So we'll see. But in terms of what I'm watching for till our show on Monday, which I believe we are having, watching the bonds, along with wanting to see if we can make some new all-time highs in the S&P, because we are close to doing that. We might make a run at 5,800 today. You never know. And then watching the bonds very closely, because they're very silently selling off with yields rising.
Mr. Flowmaster, same question for you. What are you keeping an eye on till your next appearance next Thursday, sir?
Well, I think that earnings might be a little bit interesting, but I think it's going to be all macro and election stuff for the next few weeks. I'm actually heading off to Cboe's risk management conference early next week, but so I might have some more interesting color after hearing what all of the professional managers are talking about. But earnings and volatility structure.
Oh, what are the dates for RMC this year, sir?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Oh, so you'll be at RMC during the show next week. Could we get a live beam in from RMC? Maybe a catch up on some of the sessions?
That's a great idea. I will do that.
I think Mr. Dr. VIX will be out there too, so he'll be beaming in.
Yes,
I believe.
Maybe Russell and I can do a little joint visit.
You can. Always welcome Mr. Rhodes on the show. In fact, he'll be joining me in a few minutes on TWIFO. But I digress, listeners. All right, that music means we have come to the end of another epic sojourn through the world of options. But before we go, listeners, if you want more Uncle Mike goodness in your lives, Mr. Uncle Mike, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, a couple places. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw. I try and put out a lot of content. If you're interested in having a conversation with me, check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. I would love to have a conversation with anyone in our audience if you're looking for a financial advisor who is not afraid of the option product.
Not afraid indeed. And Mr. Flowmaster, I know you got the VIX options popping off next week. You got RMC. You got a big week next week. Where should folks go if they want to learn more about all that good stuff?
You can always head to Cboe.com and learn about SPX and VIX futures options and variance futures and everything else we have. And then Cboe.com/RMA, it's risk and market analytics. That's where all our great data sets and platforms and functionality is listed, and we're happy to set up trials.
Check them out, Cboe.com/RMA. We'll all look forward to our live report from RMC this time next week. Listen, that's going to do it for us on the option block this week. But never fear, if you're hanging out in the pro, you're listening on demand after the fact. I will be back in a little bit with the aforementioned Dr. VIX to hold court on all things futures options. That guy, you can't get him off the network these days. He'll be on VolViews tomorrow. He's all over the place. on the network, but we'll be talking some commodity option, futures options vol coming up in a little bit on TWIFO. So all you new folks who are checking out the futures rundown, make sure you stay around for a little bit of This Week in Futures Options. Very much the sister show to that program. Then back again tomorrow, of course, with a little bit of vol views. Then back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.